NFL Daily, where we're partying like it's 2023. I'm Gregg Rosenthal in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio with my friend Patrick Claybon, Nick Shook in Cleveland. And yes, Super Bowl 59 is set, and it looks a whole lot like Super Bowl 57. Chiefs, Eagles. I guess we were always leading to this point, Patrick Claybon. Patrick Mahomes, he's inevitable, and the Eagles are too good to be stopped. It's a rematch.
It's a rematch, and of course, it's Jalen Hurts, lock screen, all these things that we're going to talk about from the Eagles having that disappointment there in Super Bowl 57. It's all coming back. The Eagles got there in a fashion that didn't leave a lot to we'll talk about that. But this game between the Bills and the Chiefs, a classic delivered once again, Shook.
Yeah, definitely delivered. It's very fitting of this Bills and Chiefs rivalry. And I think we have to wait to find out just a moment to see how it ended.
Yes, we know how it ended. We know how they all ended. And what I'm not going to do is let any little minor rooting interest, because we're all professionals here. We're not rooting for our picks. We're not rooting for something to just change. We're not rooting for our producer, Eric Roberts. Okay, maybe we are a little bit. But what we are seeing, especially in these Bills-Chiefs playoffs games, and especially tonight in the AFC Championship at Arrowhead, was excellent. And everything that you could want in a conference championship. Let's go to Kansas City.
A minute 35 to go in the game. Chiefs lead 32-29. Long count. Chiefs are going to throw it. They throw it in the left flat. Cut! It's Samaje Perine at the 30. First down! And up the left sideline! I love you, Samaje Perine! I remember when Brett Veach told me they picked him up, it's a gain of 18 yards. I poured water on my head.
I don't even know what that means, but I like it. It's the Samaje Perine revenge game. What is he getting revenge for? I don't know, being stuffed in a major spot in the Super Bowl and then getting the ball for a different team years later. That's the revenge.
Yeah, he comes back, and that's why Mitch Holtis's head was apparently on fire, and he had to extinguish it. Not sure about that. We're going to have to deal with that call, just like all of them, I guess. But it was coming down to that moment where you wondered if the Kansas City Chiefs were going to throw the ball. I felt like we're sitting there watching the game, Greg, that the ball was going to be in Mahomes' hands. If it was not absolutely lock solid an opportunity to throw the ball for the first down, he was probably going to run it. Samaje Perine came across the field wide open, like backs in the flat, wide open a lot late in that game, and that was a problem for the Kansas City Chiefs defense continually over the course of these 60 minutes.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, Shook, but it's the little things in the last few minutes. It's the game management, and I think when you look at the two sides and how these fourth quarter drives ended on offense for each team and the decision-making for Andy Reid to throw the ball there like he did before they got the previous first down, where Pacheco ends up going out of bounds. It's total faith, it's total confidence in exactly what you're going to do and everyone executing what you're going to do. And I can't say the Bills really had that. There were times in this game I was like, are they hiding Josh Allen? And of course, Josh Allen had his ups, he had his downs, and he did a lot of great things late in this game. And yet the Chiefs, just the whole playbook, everything is open to them when it matters the most.
And especially in clutch situations, that is the Chiefs' MO, is going to the flats. I think back to the corn dog play in the Super Bowl last year. I think about the two plays that they ran where they actually ran it the wrong direction one time 2 Super Bowls ago to beat the Eagles. One of those touchdown catches was Sky Moore. I think about the quick out to Tyreek Hill. Chad Henne throws it on 4th down to beat the Browns in the divisional round back in 2020. This is who the Chiefs are. So once again, it was fitting that this time it was Samaje Perine in the flat for a huge first down to ice it for them. But it's all about what led up to that. It's about the Bills and their 4th down and 5 decision. It's about the fact that the Chiefs got down the field and were able to take the lead. It's the back and forth affair that was the second half that made this such a great game that we're going to get into.
Yeah, and you bringing up all those old plays, I think it's so natural when you're watching this Chiefs team to think about their long run, that it's not all in a vacuum. And we will talk about this game shortly in a vacuum and kind of back up all those 4th down and 4th quarter decisions. But just from a big picture standpoint, I am struck by back-to-back weeks, them beating Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, the two best quarterbacks in the NFL this year, and thinking about this stretch that these two teams specifically have had and how they've been shaped by the Chiefs. It's so unique that the Ravens have the most wins over a 7-year stretch not to make a Super Bowl. I mentioned all week how the Bills have made at least a divisional round 5 straight years, average of 12 wins a year, top 5 in point differential 5 straight years, and yet no Super Bowl appearance out of that. We actually have not really seen sustained excellence at this high a level be pushed back over and over and over again. I know the Patriots did it somewhat, but not at this level. And that, to me, more than anything, because every year is different, every game is different, but more than anything, Mahomes, Reed, Spagnuolo, Chris Jones, those 4 guys coming together, finding a way to beat these truly great teams every single year. It's just remarkable.
And the similarities, there's parallels for all these guys, right? You have Patrick Mahomes. He's at Texas Tech. They're throwing the ball a whole lot. You know, he goes up against these teams where, you know, we have the benefit of hindsight. Looking back, it's like, Texas Tech. You know, they gave Baker in Oklahoma a run, but he didn't really show up in the big moments. And Andy Reid is over there in Philadelphia, and you know, they were good, but in the big moments they didn't really. Spags had to run with the Rams. I don't know if he could get it done, but together, right? Mm-hmm. It tells the story of how those narratives collectively don't make any sense, and you've got Spags in position to have players like Chris Jones, players that have come through, Trent McDuffie, like all of these guys that just make these plays because they have that talent and they have the ability and the wherewithal as well as the cachet to send 5, to send a corner blitz on 4th and 5, right? To make these calls, to throw the ball on 3rd and 9, because that's Andy Reid. Like, okay, like if I mess up, if the play doesn't work out, what are y'all gonna do to me now? Like, I'm Andy Reid.
Right.
So they can do it.
And it all starts, of course, though, with Mahomes. And I think these last 2 weeks have been really excellent Mahomes games. His first 5 scrambles, I believe, tonight, all hit for first down. His success rate was through the roof. And it's the decision-making, but it's also some great throws down the field to Worthy, to Marquise Brown. He didn't catch them all. But it's funny, Shook, because if you look at like the last 6 weeks of the season, for instance, actually Patrick Mahomes has been outplaying Josh Allen and has been outplaying basically everyone. He's gotten back to the Patrick Mahomes that you want to see right when it matters. Of course he has.
Yeah, nobody knows that better than me when I have to hear from people up, you know, in my mentions the whole season about Mahomes doesn't even deserve to be in the top 10. You're not watching the game. Well, now guess what? You've been forced to watch the game because there was 2 games on and one of them included him, and you all watched it and you saw exactly what he's been doing over the last 7 weeks, which is finding ways to lead his team to victory. That is a mark of excellence. It's not 500 passing yards, but it's a mark of excellence. And in key moments like that, he goes on a bootleg and he's got a guy to dump it off to. He's got a running back to dump it off to. He's got Worthy crossing the field that he throws it to set him up for the field goal. He's got all these situations where he could make a mistake. He could throw an errant pass. He could take a sack, which he did take a sack a couple times today. And yet it doesn't matter because he delivers, because he's been there before, and he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and he's the leader of a team that is having so much success that we are now not only comparing them to the Patriots, some are even considering them to have a better run than the Patriots. I mean, let's think about it. There's 2 teams that have stood in their way over since 2019. It's been the Cincinnati Bengals and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. That's it. Otherwise, they've been here, and I don't care if you're tired of it. You have to appreciate excellence.
Yeah, and I think of, like, specifically in this game, for instance, that Worthy catch that he made that was so insane where he pulls the ball away. That was a crazy throw by Mahomes and the throw didn't end up getting that much attention, but as he's getting hit, there was another play where he just stayed very composed in the pocket before hitting on what was ultimately like a good blitz call by the Bills. So I thought he played really well. Now, Patrick, you mentioned the 4th down stop. Let's go back and talk about that. The Bills have the ball down 3 late in the game. They get the ball back with 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go, down 3. At that point in the game, I thought it was a minor miracle that the Bills had the ball in this position, only down 3. They forced the field goal after a big first down sack on Mahomes to get the field goal. And for all the mistakes that the Bills, I thought, made today, they had fumbled a bunch of times. They missed 2 two-point conversions. They had a 4th down stop earlier in the 4th quarter. Here they were with a chance to win the game. They get a quick first down. Then they're almost at midfield, the 47-yard line. They get 5 yards on a 3rd and 10 to Amari Cooper. They decide to go for it on 4th and 5. Let's listen to the call.
Now he brings Khalil Shakir in motion. Orbit motion. Now peels back to the left. Chiefs are chasing Josh Allen. He throws it up for grabs, and the pass is incomplete. Incomplete off the arm of the would-be receiver, Dalton Kincaid. Kansas City has the second 4th down stop in this half.
And it was a great call by Spags. It was a tough one for Osiris Torrance, who ultimately wound up blocking nobody. Trent McDuffie blitzed from the corner. The only people that got blocked on the play were George Karlaftis and Chris Jones, because both Trent McDuffie and Justin Reed came right through on Josh Allen. And the Bills, Bill Barnwell pointed it out on Blue Sky, shout out to Blue Sky, earlier tonight. The Bills had that 4th and 2 in week 11 where they ran mesh. Josh Allen had a 26-yard touchdown run. So they're essentially running a similar mesh here, but there's 2 guys directly on Josh Allen seconds after the ball is snapped. Brian Cook, though, for the Chiefs, runs to cover grass instead of Dalton Kincaid, setting up a great opportunity. And incredible that Josh Allen even saw him, but Kincaid picks up the ball late, and it hits the turf. It's just a tough one.
I have issues with this play. And I
Okay,
have issues from an
let's hear
offensive
it.
perspective because, look, it blows my mind, and I watch this with the Chiefs a lot. In key situations, Steve Spagnuolo is going to have his defense show blitz. And 9 times out of 10, that blitz is coming. It might not be coming from the guys you expect, but there is going to be a blitz coming. So why on earth are you leaving Josh Allen in an empty backfield? Yeah. As soon as I saw him go in orbit motion, I was like, they're cooked because that blitz is coming and they don't have enough guys to pick that up and they're not going to pass it off in time. So as soon as he gets the snap and the blitz is in his face and he panics, you know the whole play is blown up. Why? And mesh is run correctly. There are guys open, but he has no time to find them because you didn't prepare for what everybody on earth who's ever watched the Chiefs play football knows is coming, which is going to be a blitz. It's going to be exotic. It's going to be an overload. Give him some help. Leave a running back there to at least pick somebody up.
But I hear you, and that's all true, and yet so much goes into that. It's 2 defensive backs that are blitzing on that side. It's so they only send 5. It felt when Patrick showed me the dots and the coach's film angle, which he has on his next gen stats, like pro. What's
Shout
going
out
on?
to NGS.
Yeah. I thought 7 guys were blitzing on that. That they sent 0, like they did actually on 3rd down. Tony Romo did a great job. They sent the house on 3rd down. They got it out of Allen's hands. Amari Cooper almost broke that tackle, I think, to pick up more yards. Didn't happen. So they only sent 5, but 2 of them are defensive backs. Bolton's dropping out. I think a defensive lineman was dropping out there. And it's also in the context of a game where they actually didn't blitz much. They only blitzed 18% of the time, about the same as the Bills. And they got so much more pressure on Sunday night. 46% pressure rate by the Chiefs, almost double what the Bills got. The exact opposite of what happened the first time, where they blitzed like crazy, didn't get much pressure, and that the Bills won with 4. There were so many games within a game that I thought the Chiefs won tonight, which is why, if I was a Bills fan, this one kills you. But I actually do think the better team won tonight. I felt like the Bills almost stole one at the very end. And the last thing I want to say about that play, and it's why it's so much can go into one football play. For all of that we just said, Nick, like Josh Allen got the ball there.
He did.
Like he saw an open guy.
Yeah.
And it hits Kincaid right in the hands. And in another world where Kincaid just makes that, and it's not an easy catch because that thing's like coming down a little differently than most passes would be.
Well, it was a prayer.
In another world, that's the NFL Films moment. They go to the Super Bowl because of that, because it was a great play by Josh Allen. It really was.
No, it was an incredible play, but it's tough to build the whole plane out of making those plays because there was another empty backfield play on the in the red zone earlier tonight where they emptied the backfield again, and it's like, well, it's got to be Josh. Right? Like this is, and he runs it, and he ultimately gets it, but it's asking a lot for a dude that is carrying the team. He's taking a lot of punishment. These collective 3rd and 1, 4th and 1s. He's just getting blasted, and I know he's big and he can take it, but it just seems like you could make things a little bit easier on him. Not to say that he can't do it, because he can clearly do it. He had the ball in Dalton Kincaid's hands, but it feels like it's asking a whole lot from a guy who can do a whole lot, but it's 22 guys out there.
Yeah, and I don't want to criticize Joe Brady for this too much. I think that the moment at times made him coach tight, but I also love the speed option call on the goal line that produced the James Cook touchdown. I thought it was executed flawlessly, and the effort by Cook to get across the goal line when he's getting hit by 2 guys was fantastic. It was a great call in that situation. I just felt like in some spots, now granted, they got bailed out when Allen finds that Curtis Samuel open in the back of the end zone for a touchdown, but the 3rd down play call before that, which is just a fade to the corner of the end zone to Keon Coleman against Trent McDuffie. It's like, what are you doing here? Like, lean on your strengths here. It was an up and down game. I understand high pressure.
But Josh Allen doesn't have to throw that ball either. Patrick, you're putting your head on your hands there.
Well, it just felt like a wasted down.
It did. It's exactly what it was. Why are you reducing
like when he
that?
threw the ball?
My issue with the 4th quarter at times was the Bills had a stirring drive to come out of halftime. 12 plays, 80 yards, only 1 pass the whole time, and that was a little dump off to, who was it, Knox on the goal line or whatever to set up the eventual touchdown. It's all James Cook all the time, and I just thought he was having an incredible game. 13 for 85 and 2 touchdowns, and then 49 yards through the air. It doesn't show how good he was. It was only on 16 touches. He was their best player, and there wasn't enough James Cook to me on the last couple drives of the game, including even when they got down close. I'm just like, hey, I know you want to do the tush push all these times. Why not just hand the ball off to James Cook? He's popping 7 every time you give him the ball.
Steve Spagnuolo is over there pleading with his defense. We have to stop the run, so much that sideline reports are relaying this to us. We have to stop the run. We don't have an answer. 16 touches in total is not enough. Like, that's just poor game script. It's poor decision making within the flow of the game, and I think that's going to be one of the reasons why when the Bills get back on that plane back to Buffalo, they're going to be thinking, man, we left something out there. It's not just that 4th down play. We left something out there. We should have rode the hot hand a little bit more.
So they failed twice on 2-point conversions. One was on a tush push, which I mentioned. One was on a pass by Josh Allen, and they actually got stuffed 3 different times on tush pushes, including the 4th down in the 4th quarter. Sean McDermott spoke after the game about all those unsuccessful plays.
Well, it's been our best play all year, at 1 or inside of 1 yard, and we won some of those. But to your point, they're doing a good job. I thought overall, maybe we could have disguised it, maybe not. But at the end of the day, we have confidence in Josh and our offensive line to get those, and they've been getting them all year.
But they had part of the broadcast. I really thought this was a case where someone listening to the broadcast should have helped out the Bills coaches. The fact that Jim and Tony were talking about that the Bills always run it to the left, that the Chiefs were very prepared for it, that they practiced that all week, and then they stuffed it twice. At that point, going for a 3rd time, which is the time that was on 4th and short, the Bills are driving in the 4th quarter. Like, it's not working today. It was your most successful play all season, and that is something I think maybe McDermott over the years has been criticized about, maybe not being as flexible and changing what your game plan. I know that's maybe more Joe Brady making that decision, but in that moment, it was maybe a bad spot. Bills fans, if they have one thing to complain about, it did look like Allen probably got it, but I wasn't surprised they didn't overturn it.
In the event that when we can't see the football and somehow Josh Allen has decided to cover it in an organ that's inside of his body and behind it, I would say he didn't get it. But looking at the camera that was down the line, which was normally in the situations like, we don't have the camera, it's tough to look down the line and say he didn't get the 1st down there. But, Kansas City was prepared. And I understand going to the well when it's been successful, because them going left wasn't something that just popped out like in week 13. Like, this is something that's been consistent the entire season. It's worked the entire season. But Kansas City made the plays tonight, especially the one where Chris Jones has Josh Allen low, and I'm not sure if it was Bolton diving over the top. Like they got in there and got those stops.
They forced a fumble on that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Josh Allen recovered the fumble. A crazy stat in this game. There were 6 fumbles in this game. Guess how many the Bills recovered?
All 6.
All 6.
Wait, so
counting the one that didn't count because of the penalty, like Mahomes got stripped. Every time the ball hit the ground tonight, the Buffalo Bills got on top of it.
And that's what I was saying. And maybe that was why I was feeling like they were a little lucky to be in this game, because I don't think Josh Allen played his best game. He made enough big plays that you can't say like he had a bad game, but he was not under control and making clear-headed decisions, I think, like he had for most of the season. He could have easily had 3 turnovers in this game or more. Like if you were just add up all the like turnover-worthy plays, like it could have been 4 or 5 total. So he got very lucky not to have them, and then we'd be talking differently. I'm glad we're not having those conversations, but that's part of the reason why I feel like ultimately the Chiefs were better in this game. Another reason why is they took advantage when they did get the stop. So they get the 4th down stop on Josh Allen in the 4th quarter. That's with 12:55 left in the 4th quarter. 5 plays, 59 yards later, they are in the end zone. Let's listen to the go-ahead score by Patrick Mahomes.
Now they go to a flip bounce set. First down play. Mahomes keeps it on an RPO at the 5. Gets a lead block. He goes into the end zone near side. Touchdown, Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes, a 16-yard run. His 2nd rushing touchdown of the game.
Such a good play call. Nick Wright on Twitter believes that the only designed runs that they've called since Mahomes injured himself earlier in his career, and they vowed to, never call quarterback sneaks again, were in the Super Bowl against the 49ers and 2 plays tonight. One on a previous 4th down and then that touchdown. He also scrambled to start that drive. Juju gets involved, and then Kareem Hunt pounds it down their throat. And so the marriage between the play calling, he also hits the 2-point conversion. That was the other play I was trying to think about earlier, where I thought he was very patient in the pocket. That was not an easy play to make, to wait with the pressure coming. Like, it's just the marriage of the play calling and the running at the perfect moment for the Chiefs to take advantage and get that score with Mahomes. Like, they only break it out when they absolutely need to, Chuck.
Yeah, I think it's a product of continuity and familiarity with the Chiefs. Because what I saw between these two teams, I thought you're absolutely right that the Chiefs were the better team and deserved this win more than the Bills did. But the difference between these two teams in terms of body language, performance, execution, everything else was one team that's been there before, is comfortable being there, knows how to win it, has done the job, and the other team that is so desperate to win it that they play tight.
Wow.
And in situations like that, you call a design run for Mahomes that you never really do, because he picks up yards on scrambles when he improvises and everything else, but you trust him enough because he's proven it to you enough over the years. You all know each other so well that you trust him to do that, get that job done, and he gets it done. And that's the true mark of a champion. This is why the Chiefs have been here and why they're so hard to beat, is because of plays in situations like that.
And it's just a skill set that he unveils when he needs it. Like tonight was the 2nd highest scramble rate in Mahomes' career.
Wow.
Like, of all the times, I mean, this dude has played 62 games since January of 2022 because they have all these playoff games. This is the highest mark since that span, but the 2nd highest scramble rate in his entire career, 17.4% of the dropbacks, where even if there wasn't necessarily a play to make, because you have to cover the whole field with him, there's so much trouble all over, even if Hollywood's dropping the ball. But he's, when he needs to, he can do it. Like, however you want it, he can do it.
Right. Remember that stat everyone was trying out? Again, yeah, Nick mentioned it on the preview show with me that everyone just kept hammering that stat. There's only 3 teams that didn't score more than 30 points this year: the Raiders, the Patriots, and the Chiefs. Well, they scored more than 30 tonight in the AFC Championship. They got it to 32. And the first half of this game, to me, was so telling. And maybe I'm just a sucker for first impressions, because the Bills did a great job coming back. But the first half of this game, for Josh Allen's first few plays to be design run, okay, cool. statement of intent, gets it 6 or 7 yards. Then near interception, should have been intercepted. And then the very next play probably should have been intercepted. To the flip side, Mahomes gets the ball, and suddenly it's 2017, and they're running the Alex Smith offense. It was 4 RPOs, a play action, and a bootleg. He wasn't even dropping back. And then Kareem Hunt, who, by the way, took so much advantage of those 25 days off. More than any other Chief, this is the Kareem Hunt that they had in weeks 4 and 5 or whenever he joined and had a lot of juice. Suddenly he's totally back. He's way better than Pacheco. He is easily their best running back. And he gave them a big spark tonight. And I was just thinking that game plan early was so creative and so surprising, I think, for the Bills. And they end up scoring 3 touchdowns in 4 possessions. Now, granted, the one possession in the first half, they didn't score. It was a fumble because Mahomes maybe isn't quite as good as Lamar and Josh Allen at those RPOs, and he fumbles the ball. But otherwise, it was pretty darn brilliant.
And I think that offensive explosion put Buffalo in position where the ball was getting put into dangerous spots. And the fumbles happen. Buffalo recovers those. But like your big offensive play was a seeing eyeball that Mac Hollins makes like a career level play and beats Trent McDuffie on what leads to.
Shout out to Mac Hollins.
Yeah.
I love Mac Hollins.
Great Mac Hollins season. But those are the type of plays that the Bills didn't need back in the win at home in Buffalo that they needed tonight. And so things had to be a little bit more risky for Buffalo tonight.
We've given some love to Jared Cook, James Cook rather. Never want to confuse your cooks. I learned tonight, by the way.
Too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
James Cook's middle name is Dalvin. I learned tonight, and Dalvin's middle name is James. So shout out to the Cooks, because you are 2 of the smoothest running backs I've ever seen, and your brothers, and that's pretty cool. Let's listen to the touchdown call, because that was an incredible play.
Split backs with Gilliam and Cook on his left and right. Knocks out on the right side. Other receiver on the other side. It's a pitch play to Cook. Dives, reaches for the end zone, and he's got it! He is in for the touchdown! What an amazing effort by Cook, who is back in the kitchen for his second touchdown of the game.
Nice.
He went airborne and stretched his arm as far as it would go to reach the goal line.
Shout out to James Cook. That was a ridiculous effort. If they didn't get that one, another failed 4th down on the goal line, it just felt like, man, are they ever going to get it done? And shout out to this Bills team, because we've talked a lot about the negatives tonight. They did fall down big at Arrowhead. Josh Allen did have the drive in under 2 minutes for a touchdown going into halftime to make the score way better. He did have the 4th quarter drive after they were stopped on 4th down. The Chiefs, get that lead that we just talked about with Mahomes, and he answered right away. This Bills team had a ton of heart, and there really was, I think, more than the sum of their parts. And I think even though they lost this game and they weren't totally clean, they showed that tonight. Like, they still were right there and had every reason to fall out of this game, and they kept coming back on offense. So just a little Bills appreciation. I'm going to go to Eric at this point. We've waited
Great.
long enough. Are you trying to hear me spin anything positive at this point?
I mean, this is how it always goes, man. It's
my heart hurts for you, my friend.
I did think we were going to pull it out.
You
I
did.
We got the ball back down by a field goal, and and that's how it goes. It's happened to me plenty of times with this team. 13 seconds. This is not the first time I've gotten texts from friends like a family member has died in my family. It just happens. Mahomes is the dragon, and he's ruining my life and the life of many Bills fans around the world.
It feels that way, Eric. Like it feels that way.
I mean,
but you can't. Like, it's not real.
I know.
It's not real. They're not magic. Like there were so many. There were chances, and it's just
that's the thing. That's the thing is, like, they get the ball down 3, and a friend of mine who's a diehard Bills fan, I texted her and I was like, if your king's gonna go take his throne, he's got to go do it right now, and they didn't. Like, and that's football.
The moment was there, and you come up short. And I honestly, it comes back to things like, would you rather get blown out? Would you rather get your heart ripped out last second? I don't know which would be worse at this point. Like, do I want to be involved for 4 quarters and have that chance and like it's there for me, or
Yes.
just not even be involved?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know.
No,
at this
you
point.
do.
Yes, you
Because,
do.
but it's happened to me multiple times now.
I know,
you
but he's turning 29 years old in May, and I'm not gonna say it doesn't. It is brutal to lose late in the playoffs over and over. There's no better or worse in terms of pain, but you still got that guy, and you still got that team. So that part's good.
in no way do I think that this is the end or we're done. Like Josh Allen is a badass quarterback, and he will the Bills to something at some point, I hope. And it just may not happen while Mahomes is standing upright on the other sideline.
Well, there's an opportunity to surround. We were just talking about the talent level on this roster as a whole, and you look at some of these other postseason contenders and the spots where they are successful, where they don't necessarily have Josh Allen, right? Like you talk about pieces of that Texans team in a pass rush in the secondary, or the Ravens in the defense, the way that they got better, and like the plays that like Isaiah Likely was making, or like Mark Andrews doing spots of the game. Like so much of this Bills team just comes down to like 17 doing it, even when James Cook is having this generational type game, and there's got to be more for the team around him, and that's why I think it feels like this team overachieved. Like based on the total roster
that I agree
level of the team, like they overachieved. It was an incredible success to be where they were with this opportunity, and so much of that goes on 17. And I think like the whole rings conversation kind of clouds people and makes it tough for people to enjoy this, because it's like, oh well, we need Josh to win one, or we need Justin Herbert or Lamar to win one so that they can be good and we can appreciate it. Like no, like we
but it's also for them, even if you take all that out of that, if you root for him as a human, you want him to have that feeling. You want him because that's what he is playing for, is to finish it off. He's playing for other stuff too, but he is playing for that. And the thing that I think is going to be difficult for him is I don't think he'll think he played his best tonight. I really don't. I think you go back to that first drive that he was a little skittish on. There was a few times tonight where he misses wide open receivers, one with Curtis Samuel crossing over the middle. There was another one early in the game where he just misses an open guy. He dirts one a little bit. And I just thought like it wasn't his cleanest game. So you always want your best players to play the best in the biggest of spots. He talked after the game. It's a little sad to listen to, but let's listen to it.
It's not fun. But to beat the champs, you gotta to be the champs, you gotta beat the champs, and we didn't do it tonight.
He's right. They're the bully on the block, and this isn't the movie Friday, at least not yet.
But the way we remember things is funny, right? Because Mahomes had a screen to Worthy that was going to be 6, and he threw him an absolute bounce pass.
Yep.
And it just kind of gets wiped away because the Chiefs went like, these guys are incredible, and sometimes the results don't reveal the greatness of the players that we're watching. And I just hope, like for Eric's sake, for everybody that's watching the Buffalo Bills and they had their blue on tonight and they're sad, like there was so much to enjoy about this football team that like
the journey was fun. I hope you had fun with the journey. And yes, the journey for this Chiefs team will continue. We'll have a couple weeks to talk about it. Jordan Rodriguez of The Athletic coming down with me to New Orleans. Nick Shook coming down to New Orleans. He's going to be busy writing and covering.
Hell yeah. Like an old noir film is like Shook in his hotel room. Just like
lit cigarette, dimly lit,
Shout out to Chris Jones. Nate Tice had a stat in the first half of this game. He was not double teamed on 11 snaps of the first half, and he got 7 pressures out of those 11 snaps.
Pretty good football player.
I mean, he's literally one of the best defensive players in the history of NFL postseason football. Maybe I don't even need to put postseason there, but postseason is next level. If you just stack up the moments, the games that he has changed to affect,
should have a Super Bowl MVP.
Winning.
I will always
I personally don't think there's anyone who's stacked up as many plays as him in the last 20 years. So I threw this out there, and I got a lot of like Aaron Donald back or Ty Law, and I'm like, yeah, they had a season or they had runs, and Donald was pretty dominant whenever he got the chance. But just because Jones is there every time, he gets so many chances. Donta Hightower's made a lot of really game-changing plays, but man, he is incredible. I also wanted to give, just before we go, like a shout out to Xavier Worthy, that rookie that they traded up for with the Bills in the first round, where everyone was like, oh, wow, the whole league, you're just going to let Xavier Worthy go to the Chiefs, aren't you? I mean, it kind of came true. Like,
yeah, it took all season, but it came true today.
Yeah, he was like putting his foot in the ground and getting in the end zone on that last like crosser away from having, I think, a perfect game.
Yeah, like his suddenness to like, he looks like Michael Jackson in the Smooth Criminal video. He's just like stopping and going backwards and going forwards. He's unreal. He's a contested catch god. He didn't have one all season, and now he's doing it every single week. That was a hell of a trade.
It bodes well for their next matchup.
They stopped using him as a go merchant and started having him play football.
Yeah. Wait, you mean you can run other routes?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Man, if there's anything else we think of, we want to say, we still have a whole other half of the show to go. Eric has been begging me to take a break.
Okay.
For a while. Just I could see it in his eyes. He's telling me the time. This has been a painful stretch. So let's move on from the AFC. We'll be back talking NFC after the break.
He's got Barkley to his left. Handoff, Barkley, stutter step, running to the right. Barkley will take it in. Touchdown, Philadelphia. They are lining up the link. And the Eagles running away from the Commanders. Saquon Barkley, third touchdown of the day. And Philadelphia can taste it.
Oh, yeah, we're going back to Iron Eagle, the bird, on the NFC Championship recap. That was on Westwood One, and yes, that was Saquon Barkley's third touchdown of the day. That got it to 48 points. The Eagles got wild, and they dropped a 50-burger on the Commanders in the NFC Championship. Final score, 55-23. I love a consistent storyline, Shook. And you can set
you didn't get one today.
you can set your watch to this running game with Saquon Barkley. The very first carry of the game was a touchdown, and yeah, by the end they were just pouring it on. This running game has been the eighth wonder of the world this whole season, and they're going to be playing in Super Bowl 59 against the Chiefs. What do you think?
Yeah, you can set your watch to him hitting a big play early. You can set your watch to him closing the game with a big play. He was 1 yard short of finishing it off with a touchdown, sets up Jalen Hurts. But what you couldn't set your watch for was the Eagles putting 55 points on the board. This is a team that we've just hemmed and hawed over the last 2 weeks about. They can't put points on the board. Their offense isn't explosive outside of Saquon. What do? Can they beat the Commanders? Can they keep up with Jaden Daniels? Well, double nickel later. Looks like they can, and it was because of the collective team effort. It wasn't just Saquon, even though he was fantastic, averaged almost 8 yards per carry on the ground. It was Jalen Hurts and his bad knee with 2 tush-push touchdowns and another one with Saquon leading the way. It was Will Shipley getting involved late in the game when it really didn't matter anymore. It was A.J. Brown catching a touchdown pass. They were firing on all cylinders. This is the Eagles, I think, at their peak offensively, where Hurts doesn't have to throw for 300 yards, but they can still rack up 450 yards of offense and cruise to a victory against a very familiar opponent who had a great season, but learned that when you don't win in the turnover margin, you usually lose in the playoffs, as they did today.
Yeah, those 5 turnovers that they lost in the game where they come back and win. Jaden Daniels throws a touchdown with 6 seconds on the clock to beat the Kenny Pickett-led Eagles at that point. Late, they turned the ball over here, and the Eagles made them pay for it. But
every time, literally.
I think because coming into the game, right, there's the concerns. We go back a few weeks. It's like, what do we need to work on? Pass game. The Eagles struggle in the pass game. The run rate is high. I never thought that Jalen Hurts forgot how to throw the ball. Like when the offense is operating, and this is rotating 2 centers, by the way, neither one of them was healthy. throughout this game as Dickerson is snapping the ball. Then Juergens is out. Juergens comes back in because Dickerson can't move. He actually had a holding call that called back a touchdown because he just couldn't get to the guy who got across his face there. Third down, Jalen Hurts, 3rd and 5, goes to Saquon, first down. 3rd and 4, A.J. Brown, 4-yard touchdown. There was the 4th and 5, money to A.J. Brown, 31 yards on Marshawn Lattimore. Like, consistently, when they needed plays in the passing game, they were explosive there, and they showed that they've had this in the bag the whole time. They go up against a defense that's frankly overmatched, no Daron Payne in this game, which I think had a huge impact, especially in their ability to stop the run. But when they needed to, the talent disparity was just too glaring on offense for the Eagles.
I'm glad you shouted that out with Hurts. So he ends up with a 94% success rate, he was in the 94th percentile in terms of EPA per play in this game, according to Shield Kapadia. He goes 20 for 28, 246, and 4 total touchdowns, 3 of them on the ground. And I thought A.J. Brown's sequence in the middle of this game was as important as just about anything. There was the touchdown. That's a one-on-one play against San Ristil, and it's a great ball by Jalen Hurts, but also A.J. Brown just totally beats him. He's an underrated route runner, gets the touchdown. That was after the San Ristil dumb penalty, which was part of a succession of dumb plays by the Commanders, ultimately. Dumb penalties, turnovers. There was also, right in the middle of that quarter, a 4th down at midfield where the Eagles decide to go for it, and they throw a go ball to A.J. Brown. And that's just like, that's what they did against the Giants earlier in the season, I remember, in a very similar situation late in the first half in like a 1-score game. And that was just trusting their best players, and that includes Jalen Hurts, to do what he does best, which is throw a go ball. Like, in theory, a low percentage play on 4th down, and they trusted him. He trusted the look after passing on it earlier, learned from that mistake. A.J. Brown goes and gets it, goes 6 for 96. So as good as Saquon was, and he was awesome as always, and yeah, as good as Will Shipley was late, like, the passing game was a huge factor in them scoring 8 touchdowns, Nick. That's the most touchdowns in a playoff game this entire century. 8 touchdowns. I mean, they went 8 touchdowns in 11 drives. That is extremely difficult to do in the NFL.
7 rushing touchdowns. That ties for the most rushing touchdowns in a postseason game in NFL history. If you can tell me the final score of the game in which that happened.
I already know it.
That wasn't today. Go ahead, Greg.
Because I saw it, but I think I could have guessed it. It was 73-0 against this same Washington crew. Biggest blowout. And can you imagine making the championship game and losing 73-0? Because that was so personal. That was what happened to the lowly Chicago Bears. It
was also 1940.
Yeah,
it's been a long time since this
people
has
were
happened.
At war. Like, a lot was going on there.
Yeah, a lot was going on. But you know what else is going on is A.J. Brown proving himself to be one of the most trustworthy go ball guys and one of the most trustworthy go-to guys in key spots on that play that you just described. As soon as Hurts drops back and he throws it up, as soon as I watch the ball arc in the air and I look down, I go, oh, that's A.J. Brown. That's going to be caught. Like, yeah, he had a step on Lattimore. Didn't matter. Lattimore could have been draped all over him. He's still going to catch the ball. He's one of the most trustworthy guys in those situations, and that's what makes this Eagles offense so scary. They have a great offensive line. They have a dynamite running back in Saquon Barkley. They have 2 awesome receivers in Brown and Devonta Smith. They have a great tight end in Dallas Goedert. And at one point, I think it was when Hurts rushed for a touchdown, they had a sequence where they're going to Smith, they're going to Goddard, they're going to Brown, they're going all over the field. And then it's Hurts on the keeper and Barkley throwing the block to get him to the edge for the touchdown, where I think Tom Brady said, they have so many different guys. Who's going to beat us? Well, you can't don't beat us. Don't let Goddard beat us. Don't let Brown beat us. Oh, wait, there's Jalen Hurts to beat us. Like, when their offense is humming, they're extremely scary, and the Commanders learned that today.
Yeah, let's listen to Saquon beating them as a blocker.
From the 9, Philly looking for more. Hurts design run, left side, Hurts to the 5, cuts it to the inside, touchdown! The Eagles are piling it on. Philadelphia doing the gritty, and they open up a 33-15 lead.
Yeah, that was the moment where it felt over. That wasn't the only highlight block Saquon had. I mean, that was him getting leverage on Frankie Louvu and totally, walling him out of the play on where he literally is like the fullback on that play. He also planted Bobby Wagner into the ground on a blitz pickup. What can't this man do?
And it's when we say blitz pickup, you kind of imagine like the running back stepping up and pick. This was a Saquon attacking Bobby Wagner. it felt almost excessively violent.
Yeah,
you could hear the pop on the broadcast, and it gave Jalen the time that he needed to make plays where. Like Devontae Smith had 6 yards of average separation in this game. Like normally you're seeing backs and tight ends with that level of separation.
Wow.
But
he only had 4 targets.
Yeah.
But he goes 4 for 45. Crazy efficient. Goddard, 7 out of 8 targets for 85. AJ Brown, 6 for 8 targets for 96. Just so efficient. And let's actually listen to Nick Sirianni talking about his guy, Jalen Hurts, after the game.
It's amazing how much doubt there is sometimes.
Look at this guy.
I can't quite comprehend it because it doesn't look like people think it should look like. But the guy has been clutch. He's won a ton of football games. But you ran for this many yards. We don't care how we win. We don't care. If we rush for 300 and pass for 1, and we win, great. If we rush for 1 and pass for 300, great. Who cares? We've just continued to win. He's just continued to win, and I think the criticism is, whatever. He just wins.
I'm trying to figure out who is 82 because he's on the current roster, Ainias Smith. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that Sirianni had a Kelly Green Eagles jersey on of 82. Mike Quick has to be the answer. Little love to
it's Mike Quick.
I got it.
Could be former Bachelor franchise star Clay Harbor.
It's got to be Mike Quick.
You know where he fits in? My late night comfort viewing lately has been the Bernie Mac show on Netflix. Nick Sirianni looks like he belongs in Bernie Mac's den with his friends playing cards and smoking cigars.
It could be LJ Smith.
Ooh, good pull.
I'm cheating.
The tight end.
I looked it up. It could be Torrey Smith. It was briefly.
Yeah, I'm looking at the same list. Tom Scott.
It was definitely not LJ Smith,
Joe Reistick,
the number 14th tight end getting drafted in fantasy leagues in 2005 when I was doing rankings back then. I thought Hurts was really ready for the moment. He was 100% healthy by my eyes. I'm sure he didn't feel that way, but what I mean to say is that when he cut and ran forward, it was good. When he ran and when he made a couple throws on the run, it looked quite good. And there were some people saying like, oh, he didn't look great when he was running laterally. That's like what he looks like normally. So I thought he looked great. It's always been a story how Jalen Hurts kind of processes the game. I think it's fair in terms of him holding the ball. There was a play early in this game where he has a hard count. He sees them coming on the blitz. He sees the coverage. He points it out. I don't know if he changes it, but he knows exactly what he's going to do, and he hits Goddard for a big gain right afterwards. So he used that hard count to kind of outsmart, see what was going on, make it happen. He used to be criticized for his struggles against the blitz. That's been mostly good this year, but a little up and down lately. 7 for 13 for 116 yards today against blitz, whereas Jaden Daniels struggled against blitz. In an otherwise good game, 2 for 6, 29 yards. Patrick, your thoughts on Jaden Daniels in his first championship game appearance? I don't think it'll be his last. I don't want to put too much pressure on it, but I have a feeling we'll see him at some point again here.
No, especially because I don't know if the Commanders are going to, especially under Dan Quinn, have a defense that is as overmatched as they were, especially today, giving up 8 touchdowns on 11 drives. That's saying we've already talked about that. But Jaden just puts so much pressure on so many different parts of your team where the Eagles had a great plan and spectacular execution, and even that was still very close to 30 points. I mean, they get behind, they're pressing. The Eagles were sustaining drives. Looking back, 30 points feels easy. He did have the turnover, but he's changed the expectations so much by just how spectacular he's been, where there was clearly the De'Ami Brown fumble, right? Loses you an opportunity. The McNichols fumble loses an opportunity. Could he have played better? Yes, but I mean, it's nitpicking at this point.
Yeah, I think so, because even that interception was with 5 minutes left in the game, and that it actually kind of reminds me of how I say that he has good misses. Like, that's a good interception. At that point in the game, it's a long down and distance situation. You're giving your guy a chance to make a play, and the game's over at that point anyways. To lose 3 fumbles, De'Ami Brown, Jeremy McNichols, and Austin Eckler were just absolutely killer. To me, I'm losing track of which one was which, but the Zach Bond one was the first one, right? Him coming over as they're holding up. So many forced fumbles, it's hard to keep track.
The Bond one was on Eckler when he got up afterward. I think it was Bond who knocked it out.
That was the third.
So that was the third one.
Yeah,
that was the third
one. Yeah. But I want to go back to Daniels real quick, because I think that those who scan the stat sheet and look at the final score and want, oversimplified topics for daytime talk shows are going to try to pin this on the quarterback because it's the easiest way to disseminate information to the viewership, right? Jaden Daniels is the only reason they were in this game.
Yes.
They don't have a running game. They haven't had a running game for a long time. He dropped back 55 times. He threw the ball 48 times. And on that first drive alone that they only get a field goal out of, they have to convert 4th down like 3 times, and he's doing it every time. He's putting defenses in conflict. He's making it hard to where they have to cover the whole field because he's able to scramble. He's throwing accurate passes. In the middle of the first quarter, they're losing the game, and I'm like, I don't know if they can come back because the momentum's already in the Eagles' favor. But Jaden Daniels is definitely built for this moment. He's handling this really well. It's just that he can't also account for his defense, and them being leaky and his teammates turning the ball over. So I don't have any negative things to say about him coming away from this game. I thought he was the best part of their entire performance, and he's got a bright future. It's just a bummer in a good season that ends short of the ultimate goal.
I mean, that place was in full throat. Everything is going. They're ready to party on Broad Street, and he put the fear of God in the entire building. What was it? 18 plays.
18
where it's constant, and I thought they were going to go for another 4th down. I'm honestly surprised that they didn't.
I think he blinked a little bit. They kicked a 34-yarder on a 4th and 2 after an 18-play opening drive. And I thought that moment actually was Dan Quinn blinking a little. I was like, I don't want to push our luck here. When in reality, if in some world where they were going to win this game, which would have not included 3 lost fumbles, I think they got to go for that and keep getting 7s,
I think they regretted that quickly, too, because then they run the fake punt.
They were down 14-3 like 8 minutes later.
Fake punt.
Literally 5 minutes later, they were down 14-3.
I'm wondering at what point. So how many plays are you scripting at the start of the game?
Supposedly like 10 to 15. I think it's
10
like
to 15.
So I'm wondering if you're getting down to that 4th down and it's like, all right. So
well, you got some short yardage.
Cliff, what we got on 4th and 2. And he's turning the sheet upside down.
There were a couple plays where I thought Cliff got a little too cute, and I think that's to the Eagles' defensive credit that, as Tom Brady kept pointing out, like everything's hard against this defense. And I know what he meant was it is kind of the prototypical Vic Fangio defense that they're going to make you earn it. There wasn't a ton of separation. You're getting first downs like 3 downs at a time and having to go down the field like that. And that is difficult to just continue doing. But I did think they blinked. And then you fumble what it was, the kickoff, and you give up the quick touchdown to Saquon Barkley. And suddenly, after another 6-play drive by the Eagles where your defense has no resistance, you're down 14-3. It was a great job, though, by the Commanders, to respond with another long field goal drive. They do get a stop, rare in this game. It was actually a missed field goal by Jake Elliott, a long field goal, but they did, make him kick that long field goal. He missed it. And it was the one moment of the game where you thought, okay, maybe it's going to be back and forth. Let's go to the second quarter. Jaden Daniels.
Here's Daniels. He goes break 4. Throws over the middle. Terry McLaurin calling at the 30. Still on his feet at the 20. Cuts away from a defender. 10, 5 to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Washington! 17 with another legacy moment in the playoffs.
Listen, 3 guarantees in life. Death, taxes, and Terry McLaurin winning on the slap rock.
Oh, that is so good. For, I guess, the last time, at least after a game this season, we still have our calls of the year to come, and I'm sure Bram and London will be featured there. But it was great to hear them one last time. And to Brand Weinstein's credit, I mean, he was so strong on the show that I was Commander's pilled after that. I was just like, I think he's right. I think they will win. And then look at this score.
Yeah, I mean, why would they think anything else?
Yeah.
And all credit to an offense and a spectacular season. From the best rookie quarterback season I've ever seen.
Yeah, me too. It's now past RG3 would have been my answer, and it's past it. No question. He was asked. Jaden was asked to do more. He kept it going into the playoffs, and his rate of improvement throughout the course of the season was just outstanding. He also led them in rushing today, by the way, 6 for 48. That play though that McLaurin made was rare. 36-yarder. He had only 15 the rest of the day. I have some crazy Quinyon Mitchell stats. Facing Terry McLaurin, which was, I believe, most of his snaps, 36 out of the 48 snaps, he only gave up 1 reception on 4 targets for 7 yards and an interception. So Cliff not beating the accusations here of leaving his guy on one side of the field, because if you saw that touchdown, he's on the right side there with the slant, and they don't really travel in terms of Mitchell and Slay, but that was the matchup, and you don't blame him for thinking that's a good matchup against anyone, Terry McLaurin, but that's twice now that Quinyon, what a season, and he gets a trademark interception there at the end. Nick, I thought their defensive stars all showed up. Josh Sweat had a nice day, 3 quick pressures. Zach Bond with that forced fumble, a fumble recovery, 12 tackles. Mitchell with a really good game. I mean, this group, they have stars, but they also play really well together. I thought they flew to the ball to the point where the fumbles almost didn't feel like luck, really. It just felt like they were almost inevitable because every time someone was getting tackled hard and they were swarming.
Yeah, even Jordan Davis had a sack. And
yes.
He's often overshadowed by his former Georgia teammate, Jalen Carter, and yet they both made a difference today. I think that today was an example of what the Eagles can be at their peak on both sides of the ball, with takeaways being opportunistic defensively, but just like you said, flying to the football. It felt like every time there was a loose ball, there were a crowd of Eagles around it ready to jump on it. And you could say like, oh, that's just the way the game's going. The football gods are against the Commanders. No, this is a good defense. This is guys that are playing well within the scheme that is directed by Vic Fangio, who's got decades of experience, and they're all peaking at the perfect time. And then you complement that with the offense, the dominance on the ground with Saquon Barkley, the ability to move the football through the air. And that's how you get a blowout like this. And that's what makes them scary for anybody left in their way, which of course is the Chiefs. But on a day like today, you take a moment to celebrate that because it's rare that teams execute this well in all phases, and they did.
It's the same formula as 2017 and 2022 season, and then the 23, it happened in the playoffs for the Eagles. I don't think they were quite as strong on the defensive line that season, so I don't think the formula was quite there for me. But it's all about drafting, developing, and then signing offensive linemen and defensive linemen. And yes, they're an extremely talented roster. What were we doing before the game? Before we started, we were comparing the Bills and the Eagles.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out how many non-Josh Allen Bills we would take and put on this Eagles team.
In terms of starting positions.
Right.
In a trade.
That's crazy because the Bills are one of the best teams in the league, and yet I rolled through them all, and there's some positions that are even. There's certainly positions where the Bills have a great player like James Cook. He's just not as great as the Eagles' great player. But I had to go down to backup tight end Dawson Knox I'd take over Grant Calcaterra. That's how loaded this team is. But to finish, my point I started with was the lines, and that's what they've always been about in this Howie era. And their lines right now, their 4 down linemen that started all had at least 3 pressures. And Sweat and Jalen Carter had 3 quick pressures, I believe, each. And then the offensive line is so freaking good that they can have their center not even be available for the start of the game because he's not healthy. So they have Landon Dickerson move over, step in, but he gets hurt. And then Juergens, who was hurt, comes in after halftime, and they all make it look seamless and protect Jalen Hurts great and run the ball great.
And they're still running brotherly shoves with centers that can barely move, which I was concerned about, but they make it work. Mekhi Becton comes over, and the story out of New York was this is an abject failure. It's never, and he was consistent all season long. Like had a huge block on the Saquon run to the right side on that touchdown, where they've just got so many dudes that can make plays, and the benefit of getting two guys to come in as rookies, and it's like, oh yeah, I hope they contribute. Quinyon played at an all-pro level, like not just late in the season, like middle and late. They took
Cooper DeJean with a nice pass breakup, had 6 tackles in this game. He was good.
So the places like they needed to improve, they improved in free agency and in the draft. Like they got hits where they needed to, and I think that's why they're going to win.
Ooh.
Ever since, I would agree with you on that, and I'm sure we'll get to that in the next week, 2 weeks ahead. But ever since the Chip Kelly exile of Howie Roseman ended, and he moved back over to his rightful side of the building, he's been the best general manager in football. He has consistently constructed a winner. He has overseen a Super Bowl champion, a team that got to the Super Bowl, a change in head coaching regime, a quick rebuild, a fluid rebuild, a quick turnaround. He has taken big swings in the draft that nobody saw coming, and they've pretty much all paid off. And, I like how you brought up the difference between their most recent Super Bowl team and this one, the depth in the defensive line. He knew that was a weakness. They were a veteran-laden group that year. They're going to get Linval Joseph, the year after, and they're relying on guys like Javon Hargrave and everything else. They go and resupply. They go to Georgia, where they've got the best defensive players in college football.
Get 'em
repeatedly. All. They don't care. Bring them all here. Because they're good blue chip players, and they're all playing well, and they're all succeeding as a result. You got to give him all the credit in the world for doing that, and then being aggressive in free agency and saying, you know what, we will top the Giants offer just enough to get you out of New York and over to Philly, Saquon, and add another piece, and maybe the final piece of this puzzle. We'll see if it ends up being a Super Bowl winning puzzle.
You mentioned the Georgia Bulldogs. Let's listen to one of them, Nolan Smith, after the game, talking with our friend Stacey Dales for NFL Network on complementary football.
Man, just offense and defense working together, man. Yeah. One hand washes the other, and then special teams is the soap in between, man. That's what I love about it. And, man, those guys, we all play our hearts out every game, and, man, that's what I just want to see, guys smiling and happy after this.
Let's listen to Nolan again, just because I like the vibe that he's bringing, and I like it when guys swear.
Man, just grit. Man, we talk about, man, if they don't score, they don't win. And, they put up some points, but, man, we go out there and play defense with pride, man. And that's what I love about Philly. And it's just like the city that we live in, man. We play defense tough and hard nose.
That's right. I hope they had that.
HFN.
Yeah, I guess that wasn't live on NFL Network, so they didn't have to bleep it. Good job, Nolan Smith. And that entire defense, which could get a big addition in the Super Bowl. Brandon Graham asked after the game in the locker room by some reporters about whether he could possibly return. This has been bubbling up in Philadelphia leading up to this week. I know, for instance, Zach Berman has mentioned it on his podcast. And Brandon Graham said he had a meeting on Monday morning with the medical staff of the Eagles, and we're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens after some tests. And so there's a chance that they could get an extra pass rusher who would be a great bonus to a team and has a nice history in Super Bowls, which Tom Brady's in attendance for. This time Tom won't be on the field, but Tom will be there in the booth.
Yeah, maybe he'll make some mentions of that particular. We got a Nick Foles shout out.
Yes.
Tom referencing his drop.
Bite the ball.
What? He handled that well. At first, Kevin Burkhardt brought up that Nick Foles was there, and there was like a protracted, awkward silence, which happens pretty often in Tom Brady broadcasts. And I was like, oh, man, you're not going to just take this poorly, are you? And then he made a good joke of it. So it was a human moment where he said he's just jealous that Nick caught his pass and Tom Brady did not catch it.
It's all because he was trained in the crucible of the most discussed celebrity roast of all time for some reason.
That was the most points, by the way, Shook, in a conference championship game ever. Not by the Eagles, but combined, the total of 78 points.
Look at that NFC East teamwork, working together to accomplish a goal.
NFC Beast.
So you say you're already leaning one way. I do like that the Eagles are an extremely credible opponent. I guess that's obvious, but the Chiefs feel so inevitable that, and I know it didn't happen this way last year, but even the 49ers felt a little inevitable to me. And of course it wasn't inevitable. Sports are never inevitable. It went to overtime and they were a really good 49ers team. And yet this Eagles team, the way they're coming in with all this talent, the opening line out in the desert was 1.5 for the Chiefs. That sounds just about right, that the Chiefs would be slight favorites, but not heavy favorites. And maybe it's not the one that America was rooting for. I feel like people wanted the Bills certainly today. And if the Ravens had made this game, they would have wanted the Ravens. But it's a hell of a Super Bowl. And I do think the Eagles are a much better representative from the NFC than the Lions would have been or any of the other teams that could have possibly made it. I think the Eagles' highest ceiling is so much higher than the others. And in their base, we've seen this year, is pretty darn good. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm already spinning.
It's a clash of the Titans. I think that the only weakness in this matchup is Kellen Moore. That's the only thing that concerns me about the Eagles. What is his calling decisions are going to be like
Kellen
in this game?
Moore?
But, I mean, Vic Fangio just did a great job defensively with a team that's extremely talented. They're going against an offense that's methodical, but can also catch you by surprise sometimes. And you know what Spags brings on that defensive side against this Eagles offense? It's going to be a hell of a battle. We're going to have the next 2 weeks to talk about it. I'm fired up about it. And I think that it's the Super Bowl that we deserve, even if people are tired of the Chiefs. Because look, let's face it. I know we're tired. We were tired of the Patriots when they were winning, right? But you have to acknowledge and appreciate greatness when it's in front of you. And this is an incredible run. And maybe the Eagles will be the team that dethrones the Chiefs and everybody will be happy. But we'll find out.
And oh, by the way, that's one of the best Super Bowls I've ever seen. I don't need to go through the whole like Andy Reid against the Eagles thing all over again, although it is kind of a thing.
It's a thing.
It's hard to ignore. It's a different Andy Reid now. Shout out to Andy Reid going for 4th down, by the way, on his own 40-yard line, having a sense of where they were in the game. I know like we're not talking about that game anymore, but I thought that was the most Andy Reid has found 4th down religion than any moment of his entire career. It was a subtle moment in that game. It was on his own 40. I was actually stunned Andy Reid was going to go for it. And you mentioned Howie and all the great jobs, that he's done. How about that analytics department? They've invested more in analytics, and that's what tells you to invest in those big offensive linemen and defensive linemen. That's part of the strategy. And the head of their analytics department, Alec Hallaby, getting it done. Didn't get a job in this GM cycle, but they're building up that team. I mean, he'd be a great candidate one of these years because this team just they keep getting it done to the point where everyone's copying them now.
Yeah, shout out to Hallaby, like out there in the lab cooking up the algorithms for 4th downs and everything, all the machinations, and the beakers are bubbling, and then the paper spits out to Andy Reid, and he's like, okay, we're going to run the play we always run.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you don't need numbers. I can tell you right now, without all the numbers, and I very much appreciate analytics, but it always starts and ends in the trenches. You could have came to me for that.
We're gonna have 15 roll to his right. We're gonna have an option in the flat, and he can run it, he can pass it, and
just give him one hot. That's all I ask.
And I'm
Brady,
thinking
one hot.
And I'm thinking Vic Fangio is going to have a plan for that.
Love it.
It's a great matchup.
Yes, and sports is not inevitable. When Madison Keys won one of the most stirring sporting championships I've ever seen at the Australian Open over the weekend, I thought of the very rant that Patrick Claybon made last week about how the people who say you couldn't do it, that they never could do it, that they don't have the championship medal inside of them, that they never pay for their sins in the end. And I know people listening don't follow tennis close enough.
You should.
This was the ultimate version of that. A person who had been dismissed so many times as a choker that at this point they were completely ignored as even a real candidate to do something. Not only one, but one with one of the greatest runs of excellent play against the best possible field ever. So if that's possible, we could absolutely get Kellen Moore and a 1.5 point underdog Eagles team to dethrone these Chiefs.
Yeah, on his way to become the new head coach of the New Orleans Saints.
Let's get on the plane to New Orleans, damn it.
Yes. Shout out to
just have Kellen Moore stay.
Shout out to Kellen Moore. Shout out to the Saints. We're going to talk a lot about all the coaching machinations. Oh, yeah, we have a new Cowboys coach. Oh, yeah, Pete Carroll's back in the NFL, and he's a Raiders coach. What? we're going to do all that on Monday's show. I just felt like that deserves its own conversation.
Yes.
And we will be doing a show on Monday with the great Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports. But, wow, it has been so fun doing these shows. We've got one more from the Super Bowl, but this is the last one in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio for the year. Thank you, Patrick, for your service. Thank you, Shook from Cleveland. And, yes, when Super Bowl 59 is set, I think we finally did it. Football's back.